Full time here at St James's Park. Newcastle United have beaten Burnley 2-1, but it was not a straightforward afternoon. The second half was mostly a non-event. Newcastle were 2-0 up and Burnley down to 10 men. It should have been done and dusted, and then the penalty in the last minute from Jacob Ramsey handball. Apologies, by the way, you can hear the mowers. It is quite late on in the evening here. And then the chance, I think it was Ian Fleming at the end, Burnley almost snatching a point, and it shows again Newcastle's issues closing out games. Obviously I stood here in the week talking about a 2-2 draw and talking about 2 more drop points. It was nearly that again, and it shows that I think big issues that Newcastle have to deal with if they want to get back on the race for the Champions League and get seriously in there. They have closed the gap. They can go above Sunderland with a win next week in the derby. That's all to come. Obviously Leverkusen during the week as well. There's big games coming up thick and fast. But today the big story was Yoane Wissa. We just spoke to him in the mixed zone after the game, and he was really great to finally get to meet him, and he had a massive smile on his face, loved the atmosphere and he got when he came on, and you can see that short on my YouTube channel. And I asked him about the number 9 shirt and what made him want that shirt, what was about that shirt that, you know, if he's looking forward to adding to the history of that shirt as well. He said he grew up watching Alan Shearer, Papis Cisse as well, lots of history to build on, but his big message was, I need to deliver. And I think I've really enjoyed that as well. It's really good to hear Yoane Wissa, just first of all having him back and having a different option. You know, he spoke about playing alongside Nick Woltemade and the impact he can have together, and he did have a decent run in behind at the end of the game, which nearly made it 3-1 as well. That must be said, despite my criticism of the of almost throwing it away as well. But yeah, really good to hear from Yoane Wissa. He's in really good spirits, and it feels like Newcastle season can really start now. It's been so frustrating for everybody, most of all him, and it's really good, as I say, to get him being quite candid about that as well. The game itself, I thought Newcastle were much better in the first half. After a sticky start, they were, you know, Burnley came out, and credit to them, they made life difficult and they really went for Newcastle and got through. And I think Newcastle were quite sluggish, but they picked up towards the end of the first half and were the better team as soon as, obviously, the goal goes in from Bruno. Wonderful direct goal from a corner. You very rarely see that, and his response to that goal was very much like, I'm the man, and wonderful goal, as I say, from Bruno. But the big thing I really want to talk about is the better performance from Anthony Gordon and Anthony Elanga. Both of them, as soon as they got the ball, they had purpose. That's what they've lacked. Nick Woltemade was not at his best. I think 15 touches all game and 1 in the opposition box, and that was a chance that, you know, good save from Dubravka. It's great to have Martin Dubravka back at St James's Park. Got a good reception at full time, deservedly, made a couple of really good saves. But yeah, I thought that Anthony Gordon and Anthony Elanga were much better in this game. There was much more purpose, they were much more, you know, direct and much more involved, and they really had a point to prove, and I think that that's really good going forward. Harvey Barnes wasn't in the team, Sandro Tonali again rested. We're seeing a lot more of the squad at a really crucial time, and players are stepping up. It wasn't Jacob Ramsey's day, it was poor in midfield, but Joe Willock picked up and played much better, I thought, as well. Newcastle now go to Bayer Leverkusen in the week, and a victory in the Champions League is much needed, obviously, after Marseille, but with Sunderland in the derby next week coming up, huge week, defining week. Great to have Yoane Wissa back, as I say, and his message is very clear and very concise. I have to deliver. I have to repay the faith of Newcastle United. He's not going to AFCON. He was quite disappointed about that, but I think his focus is getting back fit and getting in the goals for Newcastle United and really showing that he is worthy of the shirt on his back. Great result today. The performance is not at the best at times, and they almost threw it away. There are big problems still for Newcastle United to answer. One last quick swerve of the pitch here at St James's Park, and obviously I'll be back tomorrow for some more thoughts, having watched the highlights and maybe giving a little bit more thought to what I'm going to say as well. I'll see you then. Cheers.
Good morning. It was a great result for Newcastle United, but the end of the game really was a concern for me. I just watched the highlights back on Match of the Day, and just to sort of give you a bit of context, the only chance for Newcastle in the second half was Gordon hitting the bar before Yoane Wissa comes on in the highlights package. Then all the Burnley action starts where they get the penalty, which is obviously clearly a penalty from Jacob Ramsey, and then obviously the chance that Zian Fleming misses at the end as well. And that really, I think, reflects the sort of way that I remember the game, which is that Newcastle were in cruise control off the back of the implosion from Burnley. They did well at times to get themselves in the lead. As I say, Gordon and Elanga were much more lively. The fact that, Elanga ran forward quite a lot of the time, a lot more, without hesitation, got the red card that way. Gordon hit the bar, hit the post, created a lot, cut inside more. Of a sixth stoppage time conceded goal. Obviously, it's not as bad as the Spurs one or the Arsenal one or the Liverpool one because it didn't result in dropping points, but the pattern is really worrying, and the way that this happened out of absolutely nothing. Newcastle could have put their foot on the accelerator in the second half. They just didn't do that, and they coasted through, and then it was very, very quick. It was 2 minutes. One action could have changed the game completely, and that's really concerning against a team that had lost the previous 5 games in the league as well. That's, I think, really something that's concerning ahead of what is a crucial run of games, but the pattern that's emerging here is something that should be talked about, because in isolation, you can get away with this and, it's not an issue. But I think I said this in my piece for 442 from the Spurs game, and also I think I said it in my video. This isn't Newcastle United under Eddie Howe. Newcastle under Eddie Howe are extremely efficient. They're very good in what they do in terms of their style and approach, but their mentality is usually strong, particularly at home. They can they can get through games very, very well. They can close games out. They're very shrewd, intelligent. They can play the dark side of the game, the dark arts, if you like. To do that, that's what we know from Eddie Howe. That's what we know from Newcastle United, and that's not been the case. They've been very, very soft, very, very easy to play against when they're under a bit of pressure. Particularly, that's been the story away from home, but it's creeping in at home as well. When the change of the game and the momentum happens, Newcastle just allow it to happen, and that is, I think, a huge concern. Stylistically in the game, Nick Woltemade, as I said yesterday, 15 touches in the whole game, 1 in the Burnley half. Not enough movement from him off the back of the Everton game and the Man City game, where I commented on the fact that he was getting in behind more, he was playing on the shoulder, he was turning and facing the goal, which obviously isn't his game, and as I say, you've got to be a bit patient with it, but there wasn't enough of that in this game, and lots of decent, as I say, link-up between Bruno and Gordon, Ramsey and Elanga on the other side as well, and there was lots of that, but then the ball would move to Woltemade, who was stood deep, and there was a lot of friction. It was very static, and that, I think, slowed down Newcastle against a low block like Burnley, who weren't necessarily going to come out and impose themselves on the game in a sort of higher press way. They had a mid-block and they pushed and they set traps a little bit, but they weren't going to impose themselves in that same way. They exploited the space when they got the ball quite well, but that wasn't ideal from Woltemade. This needed to be a game where he continued that, and I think that was why he struggled a little bit. It was a little bit better when Yoane Wissa came on. Naturally, it will be, and as I say, we spoke to Wissa in the mix zone, and he was asked about Woltemade and if he thinks he can play together. That'll be really interesting. I said at the start of the season that I didn't see them playing together, but it could be that Woltemade needs that sort of player in behind that he can go and link up a little bit, maybe as an option rather than starting in the game. But it does feel like that is something that can be explored, because Woltemade is very good at linking the play, but there needs to be a movement in behind, and that wasn't there in this game, and that was quite frustrating. But when Wissa came on, he did stretch the defence, and that will be a promising sign for going forward. I think, as I say, good rotation in this game overall. It wasn't Jacob Ramsey's day. It was clearly a handball. He didn't really impose himself. But I want to talk just quickly, as I said yesterday, about Joe Willock. His performances have improved. He's now a bit like Elanga, because he's getting a string of games, because he's getting more minutes. You're seeing that development. It's just a confidence thing. It's just, again, patience. You've got to understand sometimes that these players need a bit of a rhythm, and Willock has been somebody who has had so many injury problems that he's struggled to trust his body. They're not being able to build the momentum on the pitch as well. The fact that he's been able to do that, I think, is really showing, and he had a really good game. Anthony Elanga, though, I think we are finally seeing something a little bit more of him and his development in terms of confidence, because that's the biggest thing I've seen with Anthony Elanga, is the hesitation, not quite sure what he needs to do, maybe not quite sure how to play alongside Woltemade, because context, he was brought in to play with Isak, who would be on the shoulder, who would be making those runs, who would be getting across the defender, which is in the way that Woltemade hasn't really done. And that hesitation has been, sort of, what do I do? Sort of, do I cut inside, pass it, and stand? And there's lots of sort of issues, I think, that we've seen with Anthony Elanga, but he just got the ball and ran a lot more. That against Everton, obviously, as well. And there's lots of evidence, I think, that he is growing into this. Let me know what you think in the description below. There'll be lots more games coming up, lots more content, hopefully. Thanks so much for joining me on today's video. Like, share, and subscribe. Patreon link in the description as well. Lots of things are going to change with the channel. I'm trying to find different ways of working because I'm not quite happy with the structure at the moment, but let me know in the comments what you think as well. Some January transfer videos coming up too, so lots to get involved in. Do subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.